Meghan Markle's podcast has turned into a tedious game of woke bingo packed with psychobabble in recent weeks, a royal commentator has claimed. But Jonathan Sacerdoti is confident the release of the trailer of the Sussexes' new Netflix series will inject life into what he believes is currently a stuttering format. Meanwhile, he suggested Meghan and her husband Prince Harry were also aware they had a shelf life before the US began to tire of them, with Harry, in particular, aware of uncomfortable parallels with the life of Edward VIII, his great-uncle. Mr. Sacerdoti was speaking after the unveiling of the one-minute trailer for the eagerly anticipated six-part series. Meghan has been airing her views on her weekly Spotify podcast Archetypes podcast, together with A-list guests including Serena Williams and Mariah Carey. However, for Mr. Sacerdoti, the results have been somewhat underwhelming, to say the least. Speaking as he considered the likely reasons why the Prince and Princess of Wales had opted not to invite their in-laws to the Earthshot Prize Awards in Boston on Friday, which William presented, Mr. Sacerdoti told Express.co.uk, what Meghan and Harry seemed to want was to be part-time royals, and it's reported that it was the Queen herself who said no to that. You're either in or you're out, you can't live somewhere else and do occasional bits but also carry on other activities outside the family. Mr. Sacerdoti added, in that respect, there would be no reason for William and Catherine to invite them back in for this moment, and I just don't think it would be helpful for them to do that. Because it would refocus things on the soap opera and the family psychodrama, and frankly, I think I've heard enough psychodrama on Spotify for the last number of weeks and all that psychobabble. It became like a sort of woke bingo listening to Meghan. I actually made a bingo card at one point that I put on Twitter. I did it as a joke, but I put Gloria Steinem's birthday on it and literally it got mentioned every week. We now understand that Meghan is friends with Gloria Steinem. The world has already heard plenty from the Sussexes despite their concerns about their privacy, Mr. Sacerdoti said, and would shortly hear a great deal more via the Netflix show and Harry's memoir, published next month and entitled Spare. Mr. Sacerdoti added, at least there might be some content in there. The Spotify show was scraping the bottom of a very empty, echoing barrel. Asked how he felt they were perceived in the US, Mr. Sacerdoti said, I don't know anything in terms of polling or stuff like that in the States, but I do think with Meghan and Harry, it still remains true that there's a generational and geographical split on how people feel about them. And their attempt is as well to make it a racial split too, which doesn't mean that only people of color would be on their side, but that allies of that cause of targeting and combating racism might be more favorable to them. And that's because they've made a massive concerted effort to make that one of their causes, starting with that explosive allegation that the royal family was racist, and now that being recognized in this bizarre award that they are being given for apparently fighting structural racism or something, this Kennedy Award. It's like it's utterly bizarre, that, one much disputed allegation in a high-profile celebrity interview has somehow propelled them to the level of Rosa Parks or Nelson Mandela. I don't make those comparisons flippantly because it's Meghan who made the comparison to Nelson Mandela when she talked about this Lion King actor telling her that it was just like when Mandela was freed, and that was South Africa's reaction to her marriage. The Sussexes had what he termed a delusional level of respect for themselves, but Mr. Sacerdoti said, I do think that it may be echoed in some parts of society in America, especially in the younger parts of society that might find more exciting and attractive than a new monarch in the UK who is in his 70s. Do I think that America is getting a bit tired of them? Hard to know, but probably yes. And I think that they know they've got a shelf life as well. I think that Harry's spoken about that before, about the idea that people may stop being interested in him as he gets older. And I think that that's, again, a key part of their strategy is that they're trying to find new areas of relevance. Harry was also likely to be mindful of the past, and not least the abdication of his great-great-uncle, Edward VIII as king in 1936 in order to marry Wallis Simpson. Edward endured a fractious relationship with the remaining royals for the rest of his life and died in France in 1972, with the rift never fully having healed. Mr. Sacerdoti said, "I'm sure that fear of turning into Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson looms large in Harry's mind, I would imagine, because it's an obvious comparison. And yet we live in very different times. And I think there may be a role they can cut out for themselves." Express.co.uk has approached the Sussexes via Archewell for comment.